I'm Rich Boord. I'm with JPAR Maryland Living, and I'm here with Michael Marinucci of Main Street Home Loans.
Good to be here.
Nice to meet you again. So we were talking before, kind of with the rise of the interest rates and how that's affecting home buyers and the hesitation that a lot of people are having, and why that is unnecessary.
Sure. So, I mean, everybody knows that, rising rates do contribute to a higher mortgage, but it's not necessarily a death sentence. That's just one factor that goes into the cost of purchasing a home. Right. So when people see that higher payment, typically it kind of scares them out of the marketplace, but there's things that you have to realize that are what's kind of like a silver lining with the higher rates. So, to give an example, when rates are lower, buyers rush to the marketplace, there's more demand. That's going to push home prices up. It's going to be a lot more competitive. You're going to see a lot more multiple offers. So with rising rates, sure, the payment might be a little bit higher, but now you're going to have a lot more safety nets, if you will. There's going to be less buyers in the marketplace, less competition, less of a bidding war, so not necessarily driving the home price up. And you can enjoy some contingencies too, right? And I'm sure you're aware when rates were super low, right? Give us a little bit on that. No contingencies, right?
None.
So.
None.
Now you might be able to get away with a home inspection or having an appraisal contingency and things like that. So
some seller help.
Exactly. You're seeing some seller help coming to the market as well too. So a lot of those things can negate the higher rate. So it's a lot of times your payment on a house that's higher in price but lower in rate is going to be the same as higher in rate and lower in price. So. Yeah, a lot of consumers see that number and they get a little freaked out. But when you kind of break it down and show all the other positives that are there, the silver lining, then it starts to make a lot more sense.
Yeah. One thing that we always reiterate to people is you're marrying the house, not the interest rate. So you can always refinance. And how long do you have to wait to refinance? Is there a time period or?
Generally, and I like that, marry the house, date the rate, right? But generally speaking, about 6 months. Once you've been in the home for about 6 months, you're eligible to refinance the loan. So, marry the house, date the rate. If you're comfortable with the payment now, hey, get into the home and enjoy some of those, protections we talked about, or getting a better deal, some seller help or something along those lines. And, everyone's anticipating that over the next 12 to 24 months, interest rates are going to start to decline.
Naturally.
So, then refi, get your payment lower. And the best part about refinancing, when rates are lower instead of buying, you already own the property. You already secure. You're not in that bidding war, and you're not, seeing, tons of houses, just flying off the shelf and things like that. So it's a great way to get in now and then be able to cap your payment, and then later on down the road, potentially get a lower payment. So the best of both worlds.
So Mike, you mentioned that, with the higher interest rates, as long as you can afford that price, it's great to get in. But what if you have a buyer who qualifies, but their comfort level isn't at that price with the higher interest rate? Are there any products or anything that could maybe buy down kind of lower their cost a little bit and until those rates do drop? Because we know the market's emotional. Yeah. And it overcompensates both directions all the time.
Sure. So, there's two solutions to that. So, everyone's pretty familiar with this one. There's a permanent rate buy down. So where the buyer, pays points to pay their interest rate down to get their rate lower, to get their payment lower. We're not really advising a lot of buyers to do that in this market because, again, everyone's anticipating that interest rates are going to come down over the next 12 to 24 months. So a lot of people that have these higher rates now when they buy are going to be able to refi. So generally speaking, when you do a rate buy down and you pay points, depending on how much you're saving, but generally it's probably going to be 2-3 years before you break even, right? Before you save the money that you spent on the points for that rate. So if there's a good chance that you can refi in the next 2 years, we don't want to leave any money on the table. Right.
Gotcha.
Now, if we thought rates were just going to keep going up, sure, do a permanent buy down. And that still is an option. If somebody wants to do that, they're more than welcome to. But what we're kind of seeing a lot more in the marketplace now is what's called a temporary buy down. So what we can do is, you're aware of this now too, is that, we're starting to see some seller help come into the marketplace. So we can actually use that seller help and we can do a rate buy down. So that buyer, they still have to qualify for their note rate. So let's say it's 6.5%.
Right.
But if we can get them on a buy down, let's say there's multiple ones out there, but one of the most popular ones is what's called a 2-1 buy down. So, let's say their start rate is 6.5%. That first year, that interest rate gets bought down 2%. So it's 4.5 for year 1. Year 2 is 5.5. And then year 3 through the life of the loan is the original 6.5. So that's a great way to go because there's a good chance they're going to be able to refi in that time period. And any of that money that's still left over from that seller concession, the buyer gets to keep that. They can pay the principal balance down as well too, so they don't lose it like they would if they did a permanent buy down. Exactly. And there's a couple other ones as well too. Some different. You can buy it down for 3 years, 1 year, something along those lines. So. Great way to go to help keep the payment lower. It's also really good for somebody that's maybe anticipating a job raise as well too. Maybe they're like, hey, I have this job now. This is kind of stretching it, but I know in 2 years or next year I'm going to get this promotion to this and I'll be a lot more comfortable. So again, it's a way to get that payment lower now and then go from there.
So Mike, that was there's a lot of great stuff going on with interest rates going up and what loan officers like yourself are doing to make it easier for clients.
Sure.
On that idea of customer service, I have a client who owns their property now and wants to buy another property, but they're not sure if they want to sell their house right now or wait for it to sell. Like, what are kind of some options for him?
Sure. So it kind of sounds like a contingency offer there, right? And you know how that is in the marketplace still, right? It's very dicey for a seller to want to accept a contingency offer on them selling their home because there's a lot of things that could go wrong, right?
Absolutely.
So we have a great solution for that. So we can make non-contingent offers when they already have a property. So if you're a specific buyer, let's say they own the property free and clear, or they have a good amount of equity in it, instead of selling it beforehand to go non-contingent, what we can do is we can get them into what's called like a bridge loan. So essentially we can tap into the equity that's in that current home to essentially give them the money for the loan of a down payment on the new home without having to go without a contingency. So you can make it non-contingent and make that offer more competitive to help your buyer win the deal.
Okay. That's awesome. And now that only works if you have equity in the property.
Right. There's some specific calculations that you have to go through that I won't bore everybody with on here, but it's just one of those scenarios where, hey, just have them give me a call and I'm more than happy to run them through and see if that'll make sense. And it's not going to necessarily fit for everybody, but it is a great tool to have as well. Yeah.
And one more thing with that bridge loan, is that a separate payment or is it added on to the mortgage loan for the new house? Like how does that work?
So generally the way that kind of works is they kind of give you one blanket loan to kind of cover both properties, right? I mean, you just make the one payment and it's kind of essentially for both properties.
Okay.
Yep.
Mike, I have a client right now who's looking to rent.
Okay.
Whenever I get these renter clients, I always encourage them to reach out to a lender and see if they qualify. Can you kind of maybe highlight why that's important for them from your perspective?
Sure, and we always encourage that. We always encourage real estate agents to, send anyone that's potentially looking at renting to us because we're more than happy to take a look at it. There's no commitment or obligation for them to have to purchase a home or anything like that. But when we do look at that, one or two things is going to happen, right? Either that person is going to have to rent like we thought, or they can buy now. Right? And then, hey, if they have to rent now, we can put them on a game plan to help them get there. But, I like to break down those barriers of entry because a lot of renters think that you got to have stellar credit, you got to have 20% down payment, and there's just that's not the norm. You don't have to have that. You can have less than perfect credit, you can have less money in the bank, and we could still potentially get you qualified. And a lot of times, these renters, where they're comfortable for their rental payment, they can afford a mortgage. Right. If not a bigger place, a bigger mortgage, than what they would get for renting. So, we can look at that and then see if they're, qualified. There's programs out there for first-time home buyers as well too. One of the biggest hurdles we see is usually the down payment, right? The cash to close. So there's some programs that help with that. But again, you can do as little as 3.5% down payment. Right. So those barriers are a lot lower than what most people think. Right. So we love to give those those renters that game plan to see if they actually can, and if they're not quite there yet, we'll build them a game plan to help them get there to buy.
And how much does that cost the renter?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing.
That's what I tell them.
Just a little bit of their time.
A little bit of
That's
time,
it.
a little bit of effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And to get that game plan to get you to be a homeowner, and whether that's going to be in the next 12 months, 6 months, 24 months, whatever it is, you know, we're never going to be that pushy lender. You know, we'll just give them the game plan.
Right.
And then, you know, once they get our ducks in a row, then whenever they're ready, we'll be ready.
Yeah, I like it. So how can folks reach you to find out about pre-qualifying?
Sure. So, I mean, you know, you can always pass along my information, but, you know, if they want to reach out directly to me, it's Mike Marinucci with Main Street Home Loans. You can reach me on my email or my cell phone number below.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Anytime.
All right.